Morning. Today is Monday, May 20th, 2024. It's 10 a.m. and I call this meeting of the Platte County Commission to order. Good morning. We're fortunate enough to have Michael Lazio with us this morning. Would you please lead us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance? Good morning.
Good morning, commissioners. Good morning, everyone. Last week when I was here, we talked about foundations, and I just I've been pondering that word for a long time and continue to, because foundations are so important in everyday life, everything we do, our government, our families, our cities. And so the verse that I read last week, I want to reread that, but I want to add to it a few quotes from past leaders of our nation regard that. So Proverbs 14:34 is on the wall in our Capitol in Jefferson City, leading up to the government's office. It says, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. And so in pondering those things again, I went back, and I've always loved the quotes from former presidents from our history. And so I'm going to just read a few of those, if I may, because I think they're important. Start out with George Washington. It is impossible to rightly govern a nation without God and the Bible. And so he was obviously our first president. That's the foundation of things. John Adams also had a profound quote. I consider a decent respect for Christianity among the best recommendations for public service, which we're all involved in. And let's see, I'm going to go down to Abraham Lincoln, because he's one of my favorites of all time. I am profitably engaged in reading the Bible. Take all of this book upon reason that you can, and balance by faith, and you will live and die a better man. I appreciate that. Grover Cleveland. All must admit that the reception of the teachings of Christ result in the purest patriotism, in the most scrupulous fidelity to public trust, in the best type of citizenship. Theodore Roosevelt. A thorough knowledge of the Bible is worth more than a college education. That's a really profound one right there. It's like, wow, okay. Calvin Coolidge. The foundations of our society and our government rest so much on the teachings of the Bible that it would be difficult to support them if faith in these teachings would cease to be practically universal in our country. And I'll finish up with Ronald Reagan. He's also one of my favorites, and maybe many of your favorites. Of the many influences that have shaped the United States into a distinctive nation and people, none may be said to be more fundamental and enduring than the Bible. And the last one, Ronald Reagan again, if we ever forget that we are one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under. I'm going to read that one again, because it really, like, wow, that's profound. If we ever forget that we are one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under. And so I'd like to finish up with a past couple of verses out of Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6, which many of us may know in this room, but it's a foundational scripture as well. And it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, acknowledge the Lord in all of your ways, and he will make our paths straight. So I don't want to be walking down any crooked roads. I want a straight path, and I want to stand on a solid foundation. And so that's a foundation. So would you join me in prayer? Father, as we stand here today and even ponder the sayings of some of our past godly presidents and that were in office way back founding of our nation, where we take heart, we take courage, and we thank you for your word, which is the ultimate foundation. And so, Lord, we ask for wisdom. Lord, we acknowledge you in all of our ways today and ask for wisdom in making decisions in this house, for all the commissioners and everyone here involved. And we thank you in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Will you join me in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
First on our agenda this morning is the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Booker?
Yes,
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Bamber?
Yes.
that motion carries 3-0. Next on the agenda is the consent calendar.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Booker?
Yes,
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Bamber?
Yes.
a motion carries 3-0. Next on the agenda, business action items. I'm going to suggest that we make an adjustment here and we move item E to the top of the list. We okay with that, Commissioner?
Yes.
Okay. Then the first item on our agenda of business action items is 2024 RES 029 to be presented by Planning and Zoning Director Daniel Erickson. Morning, Daniel.
Good morning, Commissioners. Daniel Erickson, on behalf of the Platte County Planning and Zoning Department. Resolution 29 is a resolution acknowledging the achievement of Gail Cantu, who has been awarded the 2024 Larry R. Johnson Local Floodplain Manager of the Year Award. This award was a surprise. We didn't know who nominated her or anything. You just kind of got an email, say, hey, you've been awarded. This is a national organization made up of state floodplain managers. And they saw fit to give this award to Gail this year. Well deserved. It came with all flight and hotel room to come to Salt Lake City, actually receive the award. Gail, unfortunately, is unable to attend, family obligations, so we thought it'd be appropriate to bring the award here and do a resolution to acknowledge her service as Platte County's floodplain administrator, which she has served in that role for 34 years. She's worked for the county for 38 years. She's been the floodplain coordinator, floodplain manager for Platte County for 34 of those years. I give you some anecdotes of what that means to the public, what her service to the county has actually mean, some tangible things in regard to floodplain management. First, the county participates in the CRS programs, Community Rating Service Program. It's a voluntary program that most jurisdictions do not bother with. Basically, you submit your program and how you're enforcing floodplain management to an audit from FEMA representatives. They come in and see how you're doing, check your books, look at your maps. Are you enforcing this or that and the other thing? And at the end of the day, they give you a score, and based on that score, the citizens that need flood insurance are eligible for a discount on their flood insurance rates. And Platte County has consistently scored roughly a 5 or 6 for years, and that has computed to a 20% discount on flood insurance for those people who need it. So that's one example. Another example of her service and how that plays out in the public, I would point to in 2019, the Platte River, it was off the historical crest high by 1.5 feet. So it was, I think, number 2 or 3 highest flood level. And during that flood, there were a lot of farm fields that got flooded. I believe there were some roads that got destroyed and had to be rebuilt afterwards, but there were no structures that got flooded. That's not an accident. That happened because Gail Cantu has been enforcing the flood ordinance for 34 years. And finally, I'd point to the Bean Lake buyout, and after the 1993 flood, Gail has worked steadfastly with those homeowners. They know her by first name. They have her number on speed dial. She kind of oversaw the buyout program. She's overseen everything that's gone up there since, as far as helping those folks deal with the flood. And when they do decide to rebuild, make sure they're rebuilding in a way that the next flood's not as bad as the ones in the past. So those are three very tangible things that the citizens have benefited because Gail Cantu has been serving as our floodplain manager for 34 years. So I respectfully request that you approve this resolution acknowledging this award, much deserved award for Gail Cantu.
Move to approve business action item 6E 2024 RES 029, a resolution acknowledging Gail Cantu being named floodplain manager of the year.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. I would just like to read an email that I received from Karen McHugh. She's the state NFIP coordinator for the floodplain section manager, or that's her title, I guess. Anyway, she sent me this email, months ago when you were in this process of getting this certification. And here's what she said. Good morning, Commissioner Fricker. Karen McHugh here. I am the Missouri State NFIP coordinator, and I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about Gail Cantu. I have known Gail for 16 plus years, and she is one of my favorite floodplain administrators. It has been such a pleasure to work with someone so dedicated to her community and to her job. She is knowledgeable of the NFIP, unafraid to enforce the county's floodplain management ordinance, and she is so very easy to work with. I am sure that this does not come as a surprise to you. No. The National Floodplain Management Association, the Association of State Floodplain Managers, has an annual conference. This year, the conference is in Salt Lake City, Utah. During the conference on Thursday, there will be an awards ceremony. Because of Gail's dedication to her community and to floodplain management, I nominated her for the Larry R. Johnson Local Floodplain Manager of the Year. And apparently she did, and then you won. So she goes on to say a few more things that are all very nice. Thank you for your service to the people of Platte County. Much appreciated. Commissioner Wood.
I'd like to add something. So being here for over 7 years, I've had an occasion to talk to many builders throughout Platte County, and not one has complained about you. They have, to the contrary, sung your praises. They are so thrilled with you. The realtors are thrilled with you. Everybody says that you're so easy to work with. You're so reasonable. We are just so glad to have had you for the last 38 years in Platte County. Thank you so much for your dedication to our county. I really appreciate it.
I'll add my thanks to Gail for your years and decades of service to Platte County. I've known you, I think, as a private practice attorney, then as a prosecutor, and as a county commissioner and as a homeowner. I think you signed my building permit when we finished the basement. And it's not always public, the good things you do for the county, but it's very real for thousands and thousands of Platte Countyans and the good things that you've done over the years and the decades. And you've certainly made us a better place, not just as floodplain administrator, but as codes enforcement and your other roles that you fill for the county. I really don't know what we're going to do without you.
Any further comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fricker?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Hammer?
Yes.
That motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Gail. Daniel, you want to stay up there? We'll take care of your other item while you're there. Jump around a little bit this morning. Next on the agenda, 2024 RES 028.
Commissioners, this is a resolution authorizing the 2024 stormwater grants. As you are aware, as with years past, we've made available approximately $250,000 for eligible entities to submit for stormwater grants. This year, we received 10 grants. Those grants were all reviewed by our stormwater committee a couple weeks ago, and they are recommending that 9 of the 10 be awarded on the attached sheet. Those organizations are the Chapel Woods Home Association, the Westridge Weatherby Lake Homes Associations Incorporated, or Westridge at Weatherby Lake Homes Association, Brookhaven HOA, the City of Lake Wacomas, the Lake Wacomas Association, the City of Parkville, Flatwoods, Riverside, and then a private person, Dale and Ann Martins and Chris Morrow. And as you recall, anytime there is somebody who doesn't have an eligible organization, that the county becomes we hold the funds and basically pay directly to the contractors in that scenario. So the one that didn't get awarded, Chapel Woods, actually had two submittals. They prioritized, so they accepted the first one and dropped the second one, and then a few other, everybody else was funded at a level. They did make the choice some of them had a little less match, so in order to get to the $250,000 number, they reduced to get to at least a certain level minimum match for each entity. So a lot of deteriorating pipes. Some of them are related to bank stabilization. These are all impacts from stormwater and aging stormwater system. Riverside is working on water quality. It's kind of a detention/water quality project, which we like to see. All good projects, and this is the recommendation of the Stormwater Committee. If the commission approves this, we'll send out a notice to these organizations, at which point they will be asked to sign an agreement with the county and then be able to receive the funds. I recommend you accept the Stormwater Committee's recommendation in this regard.
I move approval of 2024-RES-028, approving the 2024 stormwater grants.
Second,
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brinkley?
Yes,
Commissioner Wood?
yes.
Commissioner Gannon?
Yes.
that motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Daniel. All right, if you're following along on the agenda, we're going back to the top of the business action items list, and we'll take care of item A. That would be 2024 CO093 to be presented by Sheriff's Office Captain Shanks. Not Major Holland, obviously, Captain Shanks. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Captain Shanks with the Sheriff's Office. In regards to County Commission Order 2024 CO093, we're asking for approval of the contract between the Platte County, Missouri and the Missouri Sheriff's Association for the provision of post-approved continuing law enforcement education programs. We've partnered with the Missouri Sheriff's Association for many years. This provides a large amount of value for the training that's needed for our commissioned officers to keep their post certificate. Approval of this contract will continue us through 2024. The budget impact is not to exceed $5,250, which is built into the contract. It's included in the 2024 budget, either through revenue or expenditure lines. And this contract has been reviewed by the Sheriff's Office Legal Counsel and has been presented to the auditor.
Move to approve business action item 6A, 2024 CO093, a contract with Missouri Sheriff's Association.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brinkley?
Yes,
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Gannon?
Yes.
that motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Captain.
Thank you, sir.
Next on the agenda, 2024 CO094 to be presented by Assessor David Cox. I don't see Mr. Cox here this morning.
I'm standing in the
All right, sounds good. Would you go ahead and
Commissioners?
introduce yourself?
I'm Jack Baines. I'm with the Platte County Assessor's Office. I'm their data analyst. Presenting to the Board of Commissioners the 2024-2025 maintenance plan. This is an STC, or State Tax Commission document that we fill out every 2 years. It protects our reimbursement from the state. I think it's a little north of $148,000. This basically outlines how we assess property and how we meet the statutory requirements when we do that. first part of the document is our scope of work. The rest of it is the body of the STC form. I think that form was written in Windows 3.1. It is very cumbersome to deal with. We have talked to them about updating it to something more user-friendly, but so far, they have a lot of turnover at STC right now, so I don't think it's going to be done anytime soon.
Move to approve business action item 6B, 2024 CO 094 contract with the Missouri State Tax Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. So I have a question for you. This covers the 2024 and 2025 years, and we're already approaching halfway through 2024. When was this report due to the State Tax Commission?
May 1st,
May 1st of this year?
yes. That's what it
I just
says
seem to
on the-
remember
I
it.
don't,
Just seem to remember it on last year's agenda at some point that this was going to be,
It's presented every 2 years, I believe.
yeah, okay.
It basically, since we are in a 2-year appraisal cycle, it starts January 1st of 2024 and goes through to January 1st of 2025 for those valuations.
Okay.
if I might interject here, your first paragraph in this order says that the Platte County Assessor is required by statute to prepare this before January 1st of the even numbered years. That would be 4.5 months ago.
And it was.
Okay, and not presented to the county commission? Okay,
Not presented until the STC sends it back to us with, I forget what they have to do. They do something, and they send it back to us, and then we have to re-present it by May 1st.
So that means that this is an approved plan.
Yes.
And so you submit it to the SEC by the end of 2023,
Yeah.
and then you go back and forth, and then they approve it, and then that's what we
Yes.
approve here today.
We submit it back in November to
Okay,
the STC.
okay, that makes,
So it comes back to us. They've approved the process, so now we bring it to you by May 1st.
okay.
Yeah, we asked for an administrative hearing by May 1st.
can I ask you further questions?
Commissioner Wood, yeah.
And I just want to say I'm glad that this is the first plan, it looks like, where the assessor's office is actually adhering to the statute that requires a 30-day notice when there is an increase in the property valuation in order to appeal, because there was several years ago, 1 business day given to at least 11 members of my constituents. And so there is now a law passed because of that, and I'm glad this is the first plan that actually addresses a 30-day window. So I'm glad I'm glad that you all-
I don't recall the details of that circumstance. I do remember it, but
Yeah, and
we always try to get taxpayers notifications, so.
yeah, well, that year, that was not the case. And I know that's not on you. You're the data guy, so you're, this is
This
not yours to set policy, but
So I'll take the blow.
yeah, well, anyway, but do you, and maybe you can help me understand, because this, the Ulrich program that is used at the county, there's Ulrich and GovBuilt and Vision that you all are transferring to your. So the Vision software that the assessor has, that's part of the greater scope of this plan. My understanding is that you all RFP'd that out like almost 2.5 years ago, and you still have not transitioned to that yet.
Right.
What is the timeline, and how come that has taken so long?
Basically, it's because of the Missouri state statutes that they have to reconfigure their base software to get to fit Missouri statutes, to the Missouri statutes.
For 2.5 years?
Yeah.
Is there, so you may or may not know that we passed March 18th, Senate Bill 190, senior citizens tax freeze here in Platte County. And our goal is to have an application available to our citizens September 1st of this year. We're going to need to have some kind of patch between Ulrich Vision and GovBuilt to be able to get that launched properly. Is there a commitment from the assessor's office to work with us to help to get that done September 1st?
Yes, of course.
Okay, is there something that your office is doing to help us with that?
I don't believe we have anything to do with that part of it. I think it's more of a collector's role.
And that is confirmed to be, that is not the case. We're going to be needing to work with the assessor's office on that. So I would really appreciate whatever cooperation that the assessor's office can give us in that. And I know that's not, again, you're the data guy. That's not for you to set policy, but if you
Well,
wouldn't mind letting your boss
so-
know about that, I'd appreciate
To
it.
give you a quick background, I've been in this business for 35 years. I was the Omaha, Nebraska appraiser for a couple of years. I came here because of my wife's poor health. So I'm very versed in all of this, how we make changes to statutes and we make our programs fit that. So yes, of course, we're going to do that.
Okay, I appreciate that, Mr. Baines. Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Clerk, please take the roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes,
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Ailer?
Yes.
that motion carries 3-0. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner.
Next on the agenda, possibly one of the more consequential orders we will have here in Platte County in many years. To be, 2024 CO 095 to be presented by Wes Minder. And you want to introduce your guest as well?
Good morning, Commissioners. Westminster County Administrator. With me is Joey McCliney, who's the county's financial advisor on this project. Last week, we had a overview of the detention center expansion project. And just to recap for everyone, it was came out of a series of multiple things. We retained HMN architecture. We had the Citizens for Public Safety that had a recommendation. And so the proposal is a 320-bed expansion of our existing facility, a modernization of our existing 151-bed jail, the expansion and repurposing of our current inmate processing area, which will go to the new jail in the lower level, which will become a medical mental health division, and then a utilization of the futures areas in the existing jail to support the expanded facilities, which require additional support. When you go from 151 beds to 471 beds, you're going to have additional kitchen space, additional storage, additional food service, additional need to separate our trustees who are inmates who have been deemed to be low risk that help with jail operations. And then also some minor expansion of some of our program rooms for some of the things that the sheriff's office is doing, such as GED and other training that allow for inmates to hopefully, when they get out, become contributing members of society. So before you today is this commission order, which is required to put essentially 2 questions on the ballot. Question 1 will be general obligation bonding authority. Question 2 will be a sales tax that will pay for those bonds and the operations. This commission order also outlines the necessary steps that need to be taken to put this on the August 6th ballot, which has a deadline of May 28th to be to the election board. Question 1, I'm just going to read it straight out loud. It's pretty self-explanatory. Shall Platte County, Missouri issue the general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed $85 million for the purpose of designing, acquiring, constructing, installing, improving, furnishing, and equipping an expanded and improved inmate detention center in the county, including without limitation more areas to segregate violent and sexual offenders and to provide expanded mental health care and education of inmates. The language is very long and verbose, but per bond counsel advisor and state statutes, you have to be very clear with what you're asking the voters to do and the money that how you're going to expend it. The general obligation bond is a $85 million kind of credit card limit. That would be the total amount the county could issue. We may or may not issue that amount depending on construction costs and as we get further into the project, should voters decide to approve. And then also, again, just to reiterate, when we expand the existing facility and add another 320 beds, we're providing additional tools to our law enforcement team to segregate some of the they have to classify each offender. You don't want somebody that's in for petty shoplifting being next to a second-degree murder suspect. And so it just provides better space to do that and to classify our folks so that we're not in the situation we are today. In case anyone is wondering, this is a chart from our 2022 audit that our outside auditors do, and it just shows how the county's debt level from 2013 over the last 10 years has gone down pretty substantially. The last time the county issued major debt, my understanding was the expansion of the community centers when the parks tax was reduced in 2010. Since then, we've not taken anything on, and this just shows our outstanding debt and leases that the county would be obligated for. And with that, just to give a quick overview of how the general obligation bond process works and some of the items, Mr. McCliney is going to kind of have a few comments.
So looking at that, it's very conservative. The county has zero direct debt. In other words, a general obligation bond is secured by the ability or by a tax levy. The county has no property tax levy secured debt. This is, for example, these are neighborhood improvement districts, which are secured only by that neighborhood and ultimately are co-signed, if you will, by the county. So this overstates what debt you guys have. Currently, you have no general obligation debt, direct debt.
Are you finished? Can we? Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to commend previous commissions on their work at getting the debt down. This is significant, from $50 million down to $10 million, of which we are not directly on the hook for, over less than a 10-year period is significant. And that is a real accomplishment by previous commissions. So we're fortunate to benefit from their hard work. And I had just last week, Patrick Toohey with the Show Me Institute published an article on the Kansas City Star. I'm going to read a little bit from that. It was entitled, "Think Luring Chiefs to Kansas with Star Bonds is Smart? Heed Zona Rosa's Credit Debacle." So it's an opinion piece. And what he says in the article is Platte County didn't cover the bond payments. Platte County didn't cover the bond payments, and the credit rating agency, then known as Standard & Poor's, made good on its threat. The Star reported the ratings cascaded from strong scores to non-investment grade, or what is usually referred to as junk status. Any future county bonds would cost taxpayers much more. So that's pretty applicable to what we're talking about here today, because we're talking about issuing an additional $85 million in bonds. Can you speak to
Sure.
the concern in that article as it relates to our efforts to go out in the market and issue bonds?
First, I want to make clear you have a non-bond person talking about bonds in the article. He is very knowledgeable, but he called them a bond. A bond is not what happened in Zona Rosa. That was a lease or a certificate. It was a special obligation subject to annual appropriations, meaning the county had the right to not appropriate, to not take tax dollars and make a payment for a private parking lot. And I know you guys are familiar with it, but the reality is that you were penalized by the rating agencies for doing the right thing. And they, in fact, took your credit from a AA, and you look at the amount of debt up there, with $50 million up there, you were a AA credit, and they dropped it to junk status. Now, the court upheld twice that you guys had the right not to have to pay a private entity for their parking lot. So while it is applicable to this, it was not a bond. This is a bond. You will not have the option to walk away from this. It is a general obligation bond, meaning you must make the payment every year, regardless. A court will uphold it if you were to not do it. Now, how it will affect your interest rate, it will affect your interest rates. Your interest rates will be a little bit higher because the general obligation bond is the most secure debt that you can issue. It's also the least expensive debt you can issue. We are securing it double. It's a double barrel bond. It's going to be secured and paid for by a 0.5-cent sales tax. Ultimately, it's secured by the ability to levy taxes. So it is doubly secured. It should be comfortably paid for by the sales tax. It'll never cause, it should never cause a property tax increase. So you're tightening down the credit as best as possible. Now, the next thing we're doing is we're in conversations with the rating agencies to move us back to where we should be. You are a AA credit right now. In the eyes of investors, let's take a step back. Moody's and Standard & Poor Investment Services, their goal is to identify how good or bad a bond issue is. You're a AA credit. Right now you have, if you were to vote the maximum for this sort of project, you could issue $358 million in bonds. You have no debt. Right now you will be issuing 2.4% of your amount that you could issue. So you have you have no debt. You have no direct debt. The rating agencies should say they're still a AA credit. They're mad. Quite literally, they're mad about you not appropriating when they gave that other bond issue, that other lease issue, a AA minus credit. So they're being punitive. We are in conversations to move it back to investment grade, and it may be a two-step process, but we will meet with them, hopefully get an A or better, because you are a AA credit. So you've got a rating agency that's punitive, and I'm getting into the weeds too much, but you are as strong a credit as there is in the state of Missouri. And the job of the rating agencies is to identify how strong the credit is. They may still be mad.
So in the Zona Rosa situation, the county decided not to make payments it didn't have to make,
Correct.
that were unsecured by any stream of revenue or assets that the county had.
Correct.
In this particular case, we are committing to be fully obligated to make payments on these bonds.
Correct.
And we understand that, and we are fully committed. The documents will commit us to that. Completely different level of risk on the county's part, and we are prepared to accept that.
That's exactly right.
Commissioner Wood.
Yeah, and I would just add that at the time the bottom dropped out on Zona Rosa, there was approximately $40 million worth of payments that still had to be made. Could you also, Mr. McCliney, speak to the use of the tax? So parking lot garages in a retail development versus a jail. How do investors look at those two uses differently?
Well, first of all, you've got, it was a parking lot and it was secure. It was supposed to be paid for by the development and by the parking lot. If you look at the projections, they were suspect from the beginning. Investors should have known, because all over the document it said, you don't have to make this payment. A general obligation bond is entirely different. In fact, a general obligation bond, you also have a sales tax that you're dedicating to it. And in the language of the sales tax, it specifically mentions debt service. And so you will have two choices. Do we use our sales tax or do we use a property tax? But you do not have a choice of not making the payment.
And this is a core county government function. It's not a golf course. It's not a retail
That is exactly
parking.
right. I always say, don't buy a golf course bond until it's defaulted 3 times. And that's because it is not a core function. This is not really an option.
Right. Thank you.
Any further questions?
I got a question on that topic.
Commissioner Miller.
Mr. McLean, you mentioned that Platte County has strong credit and should be rated at AA. What are the factors that you see that demonstrate that opinion?
Zero debt. That's quite frankly, you have an assessed valuation of $3.5 billion. You have the ability to issue with a vote general obligation bonds up to $360 million. You have not issued any debt. You have strong cash flow, and exceptionally strong cash flow, and you're one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing county in the state. So compared to your peers, you're a far better credit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Wood.
And one other thing, our past history of making retiring bonds, i.e. the YMCA's, the community centers, I'm sure that bodes well for our credit as well.
You've never missed a payment that you didn't have an option to make it, but you have done other appropriation debt, and you've always made the payment. What took place for Zona Rosa was that past commissions said, first of all, they tried to obligate future commissions. You guys actually are obligating with the GO bond future commissions. But they said, hey, we're going to hope this works out. Well, all of a sudden you had $40 million worth of taxpayer money that the rating agencies, quite honestly, wanted you to commit to make over the time period. And you said, my voters never voted for this. This is not their obligation. Voters, the citizens of Platte County, didn't agree to make the payments for a parking lot.
Any further questions or comments?
I think, back to Wes, I think he has a little bit more, a couple more slides.
Moving on to question 2, as Mr. McClaney mentioned, bonds are great, but you got to pay for them for your core government functions. So question 2, shall Platte County, Missouri be authorized to impose a countywide sales tax for the purpose of designing, acquiring, constructing, installing, improving, furnishing, equipping, operating, and maintaining an expanded and improved inmate detention center in the county, including without limitation the payment of debt service on general obligation bonds issued for such purpose at a rate of 0.5% for a period of 20 years from the date on which the tax was first imposed. As Mr. McCliney kind of gave a quick overview, we have the ability to, the whole goal of this is property taxes will remain unchanged. And, the general citizen might ask, well, what's a half-cent sales tax? It's a nickel for $10 or 50 cents on a $100 purchase. And the sales and use tax that would be authorized under question 2 would be used for the debt payments for construction, but then also, and a very important consideration of this proposal is we use the additional revenue for increased operational costs. So when we go from 151 to 470 beds, we're asking, we'll need additional staff, food supplies, medical expenses. Sheriff's Office projects we'll be looking at 26 full-time equivalents when it's full, and also the ability to pay those bonds off. The intent is, should our projections for the operational costs come in under, we could use additional revenue, or if the sales tax comes in higher, we could use that to pay off that debt and that bond balance, such that maybe the tax could be shortened or reduced at such point in the future. So $85 million, what is $85 million? Why are we asking everyone for $85 million? Our jail construction cost estimate is about $65 million. That's for 3 levels, 320 beds, plus the conversion of the booking area in the existing facility to the mental health wing. We're looking at approximately $11 million for design, professional fees for inspection, and then permits. We have a $4 million contingency. We feel that being somewhere around 8% on a contingency in this current market environment's a wise decision. So that's about $4 million. Unfortunately, issuing bonds does come with a cost. There's about a $2.5 million line item. And then we have a $2.5 million kind of line item reserve. Again, this is question 1 is issue up to $85 million. And we hope to not issue up to $85 million. But should we have additional price shocks or inflationary pressures on construction, we've built in a $2.5 million reserve in that bonding amount. So with that, be more than happy to answer any questions.
Do you want to mention how we got the operational numbers for the cost of operating a jail?
So we've built a kind of a spreadsheet based on what the Sheriff's Office has estimated for the cost of adding those 26 full-time equivalents, plus the cost of adding, tripling the number of inmates that will be responsible for feeding every day, doing their laundry, and then also mental and medical health payments. Much like everyone else, medical insurance has gone up for everyone else outside of detention facilities. Well, it's also gone up for folks inside detention facilities. And so with more people come more costs. The projections are we're going out to 2048. So this is a 25-year solution that we've, for our jail that was built back in 1998.
And do the projections anticipate tripling the size as soon as it opens, or gradually increasing up until the?
We gradually will increase. So we won't go out the first day and add those 26 full-time equivalents. We'll add as we go along. And then anything that's, say in the first 5 years, we only have to hire 12 people and we have 14 people and we have 100 less inmates. The operational costs that we anticipated that would be available to use towards paying down that $85 million bond balance. Yes, we also included inflation in that. So we've got inflation in the cost of the salaries, inflation in the cost of the supplies, and inflation in the cost of the medical.
I don't have any further questions for Wes. Anybody?
Ready for a motion?
Any motion?
I'd move approval of 2024-CO-095, the order calling an election regarding the jail expansion and improvement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. I would just like to say that, a similar measure was on the ballot in 2019. The voters said no. I was one of them. I didn't understand the issues. Since that time, the situation in the jail has gotten worse, more crowded, more dangerous. It's time now to give the voters another shot at this. And we will be doing our best between now and the election in August to educate the voters on the issues. And this is, as I said earlier, this is one of the most significant orders that will be before this commission for quite some time.
I've got a comment. The jail we built 26 years ago is full, and we have done everything we can to help people stay out of jail, such as increased house arrest and treatment court. Platte County needs a solution that will get us through the next 25 years. Expanding and improving the detention center will let us better segregate violent and sexual offenders and provide mental health care and educational opportunities for inmates. All that we have done to build up law enforcement and public safety will fall apart if we don't have a jail that is large enough to house the people that need to be there. It is time to let the voters decide the level of public safety they want in Platte County.
Commissioner Wood.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. 5 years ago, I sat on the commission that put the half-cent, 6 1/4 year sales tax on the ballot to address the impending jail bed shortfall. That tax failed, and we have since learned from that experience. Today, we are offering voters a chance to weigh in on a better plan. The previous jail tax did not include operational costs, and this one does. Over the past 5 years, there has also been an increase in construction costs, and the jail beds increased from 200 beds to 320 beds to accommodate our county's long-term safety needs through the year 2048. There are few things that a community is hard-pressed to come back from. High crime is one of them, and one of my most important jobs is to support our sheriff and prosecutor in keeping Platte County's families safe. This is the most significant issue since I've been on the commission in the last 7.5 years.
Are there any further comments from the public? Our fine auditor, Kevin Robinson. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kevin Robinson, Platte County Auditor. I do have a few questions. If I step back for a moment, several weeks ago, you asked me if I had any thoughts or questions on this. And as I've heard this material being more formalized, I did come up with several different questions. I think most of these will probably be for Mr. McClaney,
Sure.
If that's all right with the Commission.
Please.
So could you provide for us the assumptions used in your spreadsheet to come up with the projections that you have?
4% inflation rate. We used a 3% growth in the sales tax rate
And at a half-cent,
and a half-cent sales tax, throwing off 11.5 million approximately,
and base year is what?
2023.
2023, which was 11.6
That's correct.
on a half-cent sales tax rate. Okay?
I love it when auditors are really precise.
So historically, Commissioners, and to reiterate what Mr. McClaney said, the Santa Rosa projections were questionable in hindsight, perhaps foresight. I wasn't involved at that time. When we've done this, even as most recently as the law enforcement tax, projections were based on 2% annual growth. And in those meetings, I said anything over 3 to 5 years out was an academic exercise, which proved to be very true with COVID and some of the other things that have occurred. And we've had multiple conversations about recessions coming. So my question, sir, is should the 3% not be realized, maybe over the 20 years, it's 1%. Is that 1% sufficient to cover?
1% will not be sufficient to cover it. The 3% we believe to be conservative because your sales tax has been growing substantially better than that over the last 5 years.
In fact, since prior to COVID, the growth rate has been 4%. And we're now 5 years into that run. I think the trend is towards, up on the growth rate. We didn't go above 4%, but I think that's a conservative, appropriate rate.
Can I interject here, please?
Yeah, please.
So retiring the bonds, the use tax is not discussed in that calculation at all, is my understanding. I'm sorry.
We have the use tax in our projections.
In the projections.
Making it available if needed.
But it is not something that is calculated in what the retirement of the bonds is. That's something that is,
We're using it as a revenue source.
it is a revenue source.
On the new sales tax only.
Okay.
So for clarifications, you're talking about the percent lift associated with the new half cent. The portion of that towards the use tax would then be set aside,
Correct.
which is a commission decision, not a bond issuance decision.
Correct. In
So
fact,
that could
both
be-
sales tax and the use tax is a commissioner's decision. If, for example, we hit a large recession or something in year 10, and you're right, anything past 5 years is an academic exercise. But let's say worst case scenario, the sales tax wasn't sufficient. The county has the authority to levy a tax to retire the debt.
That's all my questions. Thank you,
Okay.
Commissioners.
Thank you,
Appreciate your
Kevin.
time.
I've got a comment in regard to that. As far as predicting the future and predicting more than 5 years out in the future, we all know it's incredibly difficult. But at times you have to look deep into the future and make plans. And this is a 25-year plan for the inmates. And to have a short view of the future and only to do a 5-year plan for an increased capacity of the detention center, or even a 10-year plan, I think would be a disservice to the county. The last jail we built was about a 20 or 25-year solution. We've hired our expert, Bill Garnos, to do estimates. He's the same one that was used to estimate in 2018, and his 2018 projections were very much in line with where we are now. So we know he's got a track record of accurately estimating how many beds we'll need in a detention center. Whether we should do a full 25-year solution or a 10-year solution is something I considered, and the Committee for Public Safety considered, and they recommended that we go ahead and make it a 25-year solution. And I'm convinced that's what we should try to do, even though it's very difficult to predict that deep into the future. Sometimes you have to do the best that you can, because the short-sightedness is definitely going to be a disservice to the people.
Would anybody from the public like to comment in favor or in opposition to this issue? Okay. That being said, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Clifford?
Yes,
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
the motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Wes. Thank you, Mr. McCliney. Next on the agenda, 2024 CO091 to be presented by Public Works Director Bob Heim. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bob Heim, Director of Public Works. This first item, CO091, is another one of the transportation sales tax distribution agreements. This one being with the city of Weston. It's an agreement between the two parties as far as the municipal share. The city of Weston would receive and how the funds are distributed. Also defines what is allowable work and what
is ineligible work, and then, of course, administration of funds and some legal considerations. It's identical to the others that we've entered into with other municipalities at this point. There is no cost impact on this. County councilor, excuse me, has reviewed and approved this as a form of legality. Therefore, staff would recommend that the commission sign this agreement.
Move to approve 2024 CO 091 agreement with the City of Weston for the transportation tax distribution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
That motion carries 3-0. Next on the agenda, 2024 CO 092.
Commissioners, this item is an agreement between Platte County and Google Fiber of Missouri. What it entails is some ground rules that actually Google approached us, and in reading through this agreement, we were very much in favor of going along with this agreement, as well as the county councilor has gone through this. We negotiated through some items back and forth, but like I said, it's a set of ground rules that says what they're going to do as they move throughout the unincorporated county to install fiber access to those out in the rural areas. It also says how they're going to maintain that system, and then furthermore, if they should happen to abandon the system, what they need to do with regard to those facilities, whether they would be above ground or below ground. There's no cost to this. As I mentioned, the county councilor has reviewed and approved it, again, to form of legality. Public works staff is very much in favor of entering into this type of agreement, and we would respectfully request that the commission sign this agreement as well.
Move approval of 2024-CO-092 network facilities installation agreement with Google.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. I certainly want to do whatever we can to facilitate the expansion of internet to parts of the county that don't currently have service. We have some rural areas that are really pretty poorly served by internet. A lot of the people in those areas have to go to the library, for example, to get internet or use their cell phones, which can be expensive. So I applaud your work on this, and this is going to be good for people in rural parts of the county that do need access to internet.
And I might add one comment that we may look at using this as a model for future large installs. Previously, not a whole large area has been installed in before. This, I think, has some promise for maybe doing something similar if we ever encounter another project like this again.
Good, good.
It's beneficial to everyone.
Are there any further comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fix?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0. Next on the agenda, 2024 CO 096.
Commissioners, this last item is in relation to the county line bridge, the south bridge, south of East Ridgely. This has been on our books for some time to eventually replace the structure. And part of that project requires that a hill on the south side of the bridge be lowered by approximately 2 feet to improve sight lines for those traveling along the roadway. That lowering affects the side slopes along the east side of the road. They're mowable right now and maintained by Todd Graves and his wife, Tracy, on this property. And fence that's on this slope currently, it's a steel pipe fence that runs the length of the property. The part on the south side of the bridge and a little bit on the north side are such that when we change these slopes, it impacts the pitch of the slope. It makes them unmowable unless we lay those slopes back more. In the negotiations, Mr. Graves did ask that we would do something about relocating this fence and get the slopes laid back such that he could mow them.
And we, in negotiations, Darby Logan, our project manager, is negotiating with Mr. Graves quite a bit. It became apparent that the cost of the fence relocation was going to be somewhat significant. And Mr. Graves offered up to take a look at it using his fence contractor that could provide a private customer price versus commercial rates. Turns out that he was correct. His estimate came back at about $30,000 to relocate this fence along, or as well as a water gate and some barbed wire fence that attaches into it versus somewhere in the low 40,000s done on a commercial basis. And he would also take over, if we enter into this agreement, he would take over management of getting the fence relocated once we get the project started. So we ran this by the project engineer. They did some more calculations and did agree that this did look like a significant savings on the relocation, and they recommend that we enter into that agreement, and staff would go along with that recommendation. It has been reviewed by the county council and county auditor, and staff would recommend that the county enter into this agreement.
Move to approve 2024 CO 096 donation in exchange for construction features between Platte County and Todd and Tracy Graves.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Are there any comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Freighter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanden Boer?
Yes.
That motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Bob. Next on the agenda, announcements from county office holders and staff. How about public comments? Any topic? Commission, any further comments?
Nothing further.
Okay. Let's entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Freighter?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Vanden Boer?
Yes.
That motion carries 3-0. It is 11:03 a.m. and we are adjourned.